and welcome back. In this Black Excellence presentation, we will highlight Constance Baker Motley, the first African-American female judge.
Welcome to blackexcellence.com, the site where we share Black excellence, opulence, and affluence. Our mission is to inspire you as we enlighten you.
Making history and making law are the twin components of Constance Baker Motley's extraordinary life and career. Motley's legal career began as a law clerk in the fledgling NAACP, where she would eventually become a clerk for Thurgood Marshall. She became a key legal strategist in the civil rights movement, helping to desegregate Southern schools, buses, lunch counters, and successfully argued 9 of 10 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1964, Motley became the first African-American woman named as a federal court judge. Known as an incisive and capable judge, Motley deserves a celebration for her efforts in combating racial and gender discrimination, as many of her achievements still stand to shape our lives today. In this original Black Excellence video, we will be featuring Constance Baker Motley, an incredible lawyer and federal judge. So without further ado, let's get started. 1. Constance Baker Motley was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1921. Constance Baker Motley was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1921. The 9th of 12 children of West Indian parents who had migrated to the United States from the Caribbean island of Nevis. She grew up among a small, close-knit community of immigrants on the outskirts of the Yale University campus. Her mother, Rachel Huggins, was a domestic worker, and her father, Macola Alva Baker, worked as a chef for the Skull and Bones, one of the university's elitist social clubs. At that time, New Haven's Black population was very small, and Motley was one of only a few African-American students in her elementary and high school classes. She excelled in her studies, however, and filled in the gaps in her knowledge of Black history and culture through her attendance at an Episcopal church, where the minister delivered lectures on the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois and other prominent African-American scholars. 2. Motley had early encounters with racism that motivated her to study law. It was not until she was 15 years old that she encountered her first real experiences with racism. One day, she and a group of friends were turned away from a public beach in nearby Milford, Connecticut, as the rules prohibited interracial swimming parties. On another occasion, she was denied admission to a roller skating rink. These incidents stimulated her interest in civil rights and prompted her to become actively involved in community affairs. For a short time, she served as president of the local NAACP Youth Council and secretary of the New Haven Adult Community Council, both established to eliminate racial discrimination. She had originally hoped to become an interior decorator, but by the time she had finished high school in 1939, her aspirations had changed, and she set her sights on a career in law. 3. Motley delivered a powerful speech that earned her a chance at college. Despite Motley's strong academic ability and keen motivation, her parents could not afford to send her or her 11 brothers and sisters to college. For a few months following her graduation from high school, she struggled to earn a living as a domestic worker. She then accepted a job with the New Haven branch of the National Youth Administration. One night, she happened to deliver a speech at the Dixwell Community House, an African-American social organization. The speech focused on the need for Black members to be given greater control over the facility's operation. Without this, she contended, they would continue to shun its activities. Among the members of the audience was Clarence Blakesley, the wealthy white contractor and philanthropist who had built the center. Blakesley was so impressed with the intelligence and poise of the tall, stately 18-year-old that he offered to pay for her college education. He could not understand why a student of her caliber was not in school. Motley remembered his generosity more than half a century later in a speech given during her induction into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Eager to experience life in the South and observe firsthand the effects of segregation, Motley enrolled at Fisk University, a well-respected Black institution in Nashville. She later returned north to attend Integrated New York University. At NYU, she obtained her Bachelor of Arts degree in 1943. Motley received her Bachelor of Law in 1946 from Columbia Law School. In October 1945, during Baker's second year at Columbia Law School, future United States Supreme Court Associate Justice Thurgood Marshall hired her as a law clerk. She was assigned to work on court-martial cases that were filed after World War II. 4. Motley assumed position as a civil rights lawyer working for the NAACP. After graduating from Columbia's law school in 1946, Baker was hired by the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund as a civil rights lawyer. As the fund's first female attorney, she became associate counsel to the LDF, making her a lead trial attorney in a number of early and significant civil rights cases, including representing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Freedom Riders, and the Birmingham Children Marchers. Baker visited churches that were firebombed, sang freedom songs, and visited Reverend King while he sat in jail, and was on the podium at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 when he delivered his I Have a Dream speech. In 1950, she wrote the original complaint in the case of Brown v. Board of Education, the first African-American woman to ever argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court in Meredith v. Fair. She won James Meredith's effort for him to become the first Black student to attend the University of Mississippi in 1962. In 1963, she represented more than 1,000 Black children in Birmingham who had been suspended from school for participating in civil rights demonstrations. Motley was successful in 9 of the 10 cases she argued before the Supreme Court. The 10th decision regarding jury composition was eventually overturned in her favor. She was otherwise a key legal strategist in the civil rights movement, helping to desegregate Southern schools, buses, and lunch counters. 5. Motley was elected to New York State Senate and other political roles. After leaving the Legal Defense Fund in 1964, Motley's high-profile work as a civil rights lawyer drew her into the world of politics. She would be offered the nomination for the Democratic candidate for the New York State Senate after the previous candidate was ruled ineligible due to an election law violation. She defeated the Republican candidate, becoming the first Black woman elected to the New York State Senate. The next year, she was selected to fill the vacant post of Manhattan Borough President and then was elected 9 months later. Again, she was the first Black woman to hold the office. She was re-elected that November and remained in the job until February of 1965, when she was chosen by the unanimous vote of the New York City Council to fill a 1-year vacancy as Manhattan Borough President. In citywide elections 9 months later, she was re-elected to a full 4-year term with the endorsement of Democratic, Republican, and Liberal voters. She thus became the first woman and the third African American to hold the office of borough president. While serving as borough president, Motley helped draw up a master plan to revitalize Harlem, which included the construction of a new state office building and city police academy. In addition, she worked to improve city schools, rehabilitate housing in Harlem and other underprivileged areas, and pressed for more local community involvement in the city planning. In March of 1965, she represented New York City on the historic Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. 6. Motley was the first African American female to become a federal judge. Motley was nominated by President Lyndon B. Johnson on January 26, 1966, to a seat on the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, vacated by Judge Archie Owen Dawson. The chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee was a vocal and overt racist who opposed Motley's appointment and was able to delay her confirmation for 7 months. However, Motley was ultimately confirmed by the United States Senate, and she received her commission on August 30, 1966, becoming the first African-American female federal judge. In 1982, Constance Baker Motley was elevated to Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, the largest federal trial court in the United States. She would later serve as Chief Judge from 1982 to 1986. Assuming senior status on September 30, 1986. 7. Judge Motley presided over several notable cases as a federal judge. Several of Motley's rulings stand out, including the 1978 case that allowed female reporters to enter the locker rooms of professional sports teams. In 1987, she ruled that, without exceptional circumstances, suspects could not be detained more than 24 hours without a court ruling that sufficient evidence exists to justify the arrest. In Belknap v. Leary, another highly publicized case, Judge Motley admonished the New York City police for not providing Vietnam War protesters with adequate protection against violence in the streets. Of the many cases that Motley presided over, the gender discrimination case, Blank v. Sullivan and Cromwell, stands out. Diane Blank and several female law school graduates sued their employer, the law firm Sullivan and Cromwell, claiming that they refused to hire female attorneys. Furthermore, they claimed that the few women that the firm did hire were paid less and subjected them to less favorable working conditions. The lawyers for Sullivan and Cromwell requested Judge Motley's recusal, arguing that she was not capable of delivering an unbiased decision in the gender discrimination case due to her own racial and gender identity. Judge Motley refused to recuse herself and defended her professional competence to preside over a gender discrimination case. She emphasized that all judges come to the bench with a background of experiences, associations, and viewpoints. Therefore, a judge is not required to recuse themselves merely because he or she has expressed certain views on a subject. Treatises and courts continue to cite Motley's opinion in Blank v. Sullivan, even today, for the proposition that neither gender nor race alone can disqualify a judge from presiding in a case. 8. Constance married Joel Motley Jr. in 1946, and they were blessed with a son. Constance Baker married Joel Motley Jr., a real estate and insurance broker, in 1946 at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in New Haven, Connecticut. She gave birth to one son, Joel Wilson Motley III. During the early 21st century, Motley became a part of the Just the Beginning Foundation, a foundation dedicated to preserving African American judges who improve the African American community through their work. Their son, Joel Motley III, would become co-chairman of Human Rights Watch, proudly fulfilling a longtime goal of doing work similar to his mother's. Joel III co-produced a short film about his late mother and her illustrious legal career titled The Trials of Constance Baker Motley. The documentary traces his mother's life from her childhood in Connecticut through her nearly 20 years as a civil rights lawyer. The independent film debuted at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2015 and won the Audience Award for Best Documentary Short at the Austin Film Festival. 9. Constance received multiple awards and accolades for her service. Motley received a Candace Award for Distinguished Service from the National Coalition of 100 Black Women in 1984. In 1993, she was inducted into National Women's Hall of Fame. In 2001, President Bill Clinton awarded her the Presidential Citizens Medal. The NAACP awarded her the Spingarn Medal, the organization's highest honor, in 2003. Motley was also awarded the Distinguished Alumna Award from Columbia Law School's Women's Association. Motley was a prominent honorary member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Motley in early 2006 was honored by Senators Charles Schumer and then Senator Hillary Clinton with the Congressional Gold Medal posthumously. In 2011, she was honored posthumously with the Ford Freedom Award for her work to improve the African American community. 10. Constance Baker Motley passed away on September 28, 2005. Constance Baker Motley passed away of congestive heart failure on September 28, 2005, 14 days after her 84th birthday. Her funeral was held at the Connecticut church where she had married her husband Joel decades earlier. Constance Baker Motley led a distinguished career as both a civil rights attorney and a judge on the federal bench, representing the voice of both minorities and women during her decades as a practicing attorney. She had also addressed the rights of these same groups from her position on the U.S. District Court of New York State. An energetic, dedicated woman who had devoted her life to the practice of law, she had transcended many stereotypes leveled against members of her gender, earning a reputation as a somewhat uncompromising judge with little patience for lawyers who overstepped their bounds. Motley has inspired generations of African American women lawyers and judges who have embraced the mission to dismantle discrimination in all forms. One day soon, we hope to say that she has inspired the first African American female to be appointed as United States Supreme Court Justice.
We appreciate the fact that you stayed with us until the end. Thank you for spending time with us, and don't forget to like this video. Also, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss a video. Bye for now. We will see you tomorrow.